is up, YouTube? This is Hypergon, your chat with the cat, back again for another video. It's been a while since I've done a deck profile, huh? So, I figure for this week, I'll go ahead and do one for a deck I've been working on for quite some time. It's a deck I've always been rather fond of ever since it first debuted a few sets back, and I've been trying to find the way to capitalize it that most captures my playstyle. That deck is Kaijus. Now, the Kaijus for me have always been an interesting deck just because of the way they work. They were released alongside the Cosmos as a TCG exclusive archetype, and for me they were always the more enjoyable of the two. Now, don't get me wrong, Cosmos are definitely stronger, but Cosmos for me are also a bit more rigid. The Kaiju, on the other hand, I feel are a little bit more dynamic in just their potential. So, I was working on this deck tirelessly and ultimately came out with a rank 8 build that I am quite proud of. So, let's go ahead and see what the deck has in store. So, starting off our list, we have 3 copies of Doragon, the Mad Flame Kaiju. Now, as I said, this is a rank 8 Kaiju build, so for me, having 3 of these guys seemed like a no-brainer. 3k attack, the ability to wipe the field, and overall just a pretty solid monster. Next up, we have 3 copies of Lamara, the Mystery Dust Kaiju. Again, pretty good for what he does. Pretty good attack, and his ability to knock your opponent's monster's attack in half is extremely useful and essentially makes him one of the hardest hitters in the deck. Next up, we have everyone's favorite, Glacial, the Sea Turtle Kaiju. This is, of course, your opponent's Kaiju monster, as you will rarely be summoning this for your own side of the field. Now, these are the only level 8 Kaijus in the deck, so I do run 3 copies of each since, like I said, this is a rank 8 Kaiju build. However, there is the inherent obvious issue with doing this because, now hold on, the Kaijus can only have one of them out on a time. So how do you rank 8 with a deck you can only have one of at a time? Well, obviously there's some outside influence. The first of which is 3 copies of Parsec the Interstellar Dragon. Level 8 Dragon-type monster with the ability that if you control a level 8 monster, you can normal summon without tributing. Now, while normally you don't go for monsters that require normal summon, since all the Kaijus will more often than not be special summoned, it's not really that big of a deal, so the normal summon effect actually doesn't cause that big of a problem. For the same reason, I run 3 copies of Gaga Magician. Now, truth be told, I would rather these be Beast King Barbaros. However, I had 3 of these and did not have 3 Barbaros, so for the time being, they are magicians. However, I would prefer these to be Barbaros just because I can use them as trade-in targets. That way, my entire monster lineup can be trade-in for any given moment. But having Cowboy is still pretty good. He'll still be normal summon without tribute, obviously, and can become level 8 at any given moment. So, he still gets the job done for the time being. And that's my monster lineup, pretty straightforward. Basic idea is get out the Kaijus and then normal summon one of the other 2 to have my rank 8. Now, no Kaiju deck, of course, would be complete without 3 copies of Kyoto Waterfront, the essential lifeblood of the deck, as it gives the Kaiju monsters the counters they need in order to use their effects. Of course, if you build up enough Kaiju counters, this is also a good search card, so overall, a necessity for the deck. Next up, we have 3 Interrupted Kaiju Slumbers. Again, a really good card, can serve as a dark hole, and also sets up Kaiju monsters on both sides of the field. So, overall, it's pretty good. The only catch is that there does have to be a monster to be destroyed out, but then again, why would you play this card if you weren't going to destroy anything? So, it's not necessarily a free Kaiju setup, but odds are your opponent's going to have something. I mean, most players will try and avoid actively summoning on a Kaiju player just to avoid giving them their outlet. However, as we all know, most decks need to summon eventually, so you'll get them sooner or later. Next up, we have the Kaiju Files. Nice little thing for if you, say, have 2 Doragon in your hand, so that way your opponent is not on equal footing with you. You can just give him Glacial the Turtle Kaiju, and you can still keep your Doragon. You'll be perfectly set. This and Interrupted Kaiju Slumber can also be banished from the grave for additional search power, which is extremely helpful. So, overall, pretty necessary cards. Next up, because I'm an asshole, I play 3 copies of Kaiser Coliseum. For the most part, with most Kaiju decks, you're typically only going to be having out at most 1 monster at a time, at least when your opponent's turn comes around. So Kaiser Coliseum's a nice little way to keep them stunned. Shouldn't be much of a surprise that I play this since I was at one point a Bujin player, though I did not do Kaiser Bujins. I just did aggro Bujins. But point is, for this deck, I do use Kaiser Coliseum just to kind of slow my opponent down and make them waste an MST. Next up, I run 2 copies of the Owner's Seal, just in case I only have 1 Kaiju in hand. That way I can just get it back, no problem. As previously mentioned, I do run 3 copies of Trade-In. The deck is for level 8, so why would I not? 2 copies of Terraforming to get me that ever-important Kyoto Waterfront. And 2 MSTs for that pesky back row. That does it for my spell lineup. Pretty straightforward. And honestly, the biggest part of the deck, but got a lot of important pieces in it. Finally, for traps, I have 2 Kaiju capture missions, just in case my opponent still has a Kaiju come around his turn and I have no means to stop it. This way I can build up counters and essentially make his Kaiju monster worthless. And of course, to remove brainwashing for the literal same reason that I have Owner's Seal. It's just that this way I can do it with specific timing should I need to. That's it for the main deck. Now we have the extra deck. Since I don't have a full 15 card extra deck, just for the hell of it, I do run a Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, because you never know when you're going to encounter a Cyber Dragon player, and this way you can kind of screw him over, and honestly I'd find that kind of hilarious. But as for the actual part of the deck, I run 1 Gion, the Sea Castrum. This card is in no way good, do not think it is, but it is a hilarious card to use. Basically, the way that it works is that you banish monsters from your opponent's extra deck one at a time. You can only have 1 like that. And I believe it gains attack based on that, and it's just a silly card to play around with. It's not really going to be like anything terribly good, and it's random when you do it, so really, it's just a guessing game with him until you eventually get that 1 extra deck monster you know your opponent needs, so it's just kind of a funny card to play around with. Not good, but amusing to use. Next up, we have 1 Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand, because what rank 8 deck is complete without this? 1 Hieratic Dragon Overlord of Heliopolis, because, again, rank 8, kinda need it. 1 number 15 Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder, just to get rid of monsters as need be, and if it happens to be an Xyz monster, then that's all the better for me. 1 number 23 Lancelot Dark Knight of the Underworld, just because, again, it's a good rank 8, and its ability to attack directly is pretty helpful, along with its negate ability is pretty useful. 1 number 38, I'm not even going to bother trying to read that. Just for the options of it, it's pretty decent spell counter, so if opponent's spell heavy, I'll drop him. 1 number 40 Gimmick Puppet of Strings. Again, just pretty good board wipe if I don't have Slumber. That way I can do this and know that I'm going to hit my opponent pretty hard with it. 1 number 62 Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. On top of being big, he does unfortunately have the drawback of not being able to do full damage unless he has a Galaxy Eyes, which obviously I don't have. However, I can use him in order to go into number 95, Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon, which is just strictly an amazing card. Obviously, I can't use his ability to send 3 dragons to the graveyard. Oh well, he does still have other uses. On top of his own effects, I can also use him as material for number 84 Pain Gainer, which by default means I do also run 1 copy of number 77, The Seven Sins. Those last 3 are pretty much just because I can cards. They are good, but realistically it depends on the situation whether or not I'm going to be using them. But that will do it for my deck profile of my rank 8 Kaijus. What do you guys think? Is this an interesting little Kaiju build, or is there a more efficient way to do rank 8s? I'm aware there are other variants of it. I know that there's one that involves the super heavy samurai, but I'm just not really for that particular build. Again, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. You can also like my page on Facebook. Let me know your thoughts and opinions there. I try and update it regularly to let you guys know what's going on with the channel. Like this video, and subscribe to my channel for further content. Until next time, peace.